I think the best benefits you can see are just the reaction that people have to local food. I mean, when we're bringing this food into some of the neighborhoods in Cleveland that we're working with, or even right here in Oberlin or Lorain, just the freshness of the food, its appearance, the knowledge that is coming from a local farm. I mean, it's just a lot more fun of a system. People have a lot more fun with the local food. It's creating this sense of community. You know, whether it's community gathering around the farms or the community gardens, or it's community gathering around the fresh stops in the neighborhood to get their food, or community gathering around preparing the food. I think it's really kind of a subtle thing, but it's a very powerful thing, that local food's really creating a higher quality of life. So I think that's one of the great benefits.
I coordinate farmer relationships with people in the city. City relationships demand to the farmer, and I make sure that everything is as fresh and as beautiful, as huggable, as tasteable as possible.
Why?
Oh man, that matters. Emotions, the emotions that these things that we bring in from the countryside or right here from 2 blocks away, that's important. That's an emotion, and as people, more importantly little children, touch that, they're forming a bond with that. And as they form that bond is something that lasts a lifetime in their memory. And as they begin to take something off the table and put it into their mouths, that forms a memory engram. And this engram is something they refer back to again and again and again.
If you get people in a garden, people are happy. You don't see many arguments in a garden, except about who's growing what where. But you know, it's a very democratic, totally democratic activity that anybody can do, anywhere, anytime, pretty well. You can do it inside when it's 5 foot of snow outside. You can do it when it's baking hot. You can do it anywhere. And if you can get that connect between your need to feed yourself and having that food produced as closely as it can to you, well then you're doing a really good job, and you're starting those small building blocks of building up what we would call a regenerative system in society.
It's a lot different, and it's my prayer that one of them days I'll get some kids and go with them back home so that they can see that different context. For me, as I grew up as a young kid, I grew up knowing how food looks like. You know, I knew how a carrot was like, I knew how a tomato was like, and I knew how to just go to the farm and just kitchen garden and just pick that. You know, go out into the chicken coop and pick some eggs and make them for myself if I needed to. And, you know, I used to take milk to the dairy. I mean, I'm sure when I talk to kids here and I tell them that, they go, what? You know, so, but I grew up doing all sorts of farm work. And I think to me, that is precious. That is precious because, one, it taught me real great work ethics because, you know, I learned from a very young age, you know, how to do what I'm supposed to do and do it well, not just do it well. On top of that, I learned to appreciate the beauty of hard work. You know, just growing my own little stuff in my own little garden that, you know, my family would give me was very inspiring. And I loved animals so much. So just spending time with animals and talking with them and communicating with them, which of course would be spooky to some people, but it really to me was just, it was so awesome to see that kind of thing happening. And with that, I mean, we rarely have any of these issues that a lot of kids struggle with. I mean, I've never been obese in my life. I've never been suffering from most of the things that I see kids here suffering from. And I think to me that is great. I mean, we may have had a lot of other issues, you know, poverty issues, but the fact that we always had fresh food, I think that to me makes me feel, when I look back, when I was growing up, I thought we were very poor because we did all that. But now looking back, I feel like we were so rich and we didn't know how rich we are. And especially coming to this country and realizing how people are detached from their food, the food that they eat, which is the central thing. It's a basic need. You know, it's a basic need.
The disconnection. I think a perfect indicator would be something like a TV dinner meal, a drive-through. You know, if you go through the drive-through, You're not even leaving your car. You're having no quality interactions with any other human beings. You're getting this perfectly packaged food that's got bright and attractive colors on it. You munch down this stuff that's enhanced with all kinds of flavor enhancers and is mixed together with who knows what. And then you have this packaging that you might throw on the street or throw in the garbage, but you're not washing any dishes or concerned about anything. So there's a complete disconnection there. If you had to go through the feedlots and if you had to see the conditions in which a lot of this food was grown, there's no way that you would have any appetite to eat it. But we're disconnected from that. It's been replaced with marketing and with nice packaging, and kind of the sense of you shouldn't be bothered with any of these messy connections. You shouldn't have to worry about where your food came from, how it's produced, none of that. Here's this nice package, just eat it and don't worry about it. It's all taken care of for you. And I think that's really embodies the disconnection. I think the connection is kind of the opposite end, where you have a sense of the lives of those animals, the lives of the farmers, the lives of the crops. You're much more connected to that, and it gives you a whole different experience. You appreciate your food in a very different way if you've actually had to process chickens, or if you've actually been involved with the harvesting, or even if you know the farmers that are involved with that and their families. It's a very different experience eating a meal that you feel connected to in some bigger sense. And I think it speaks volumes to how we connect with the larger world and the impacts our lives have on the larger world and the problems that we have when we're disconnected. I think a lot of it goes to connection. When you're working within a local food system, you know the farmer, you know the land, you know the water because you're connected to it, it's around you. When you have a garden in your backyard or when you have a local farmer getting your food from, you have that connection. You know where the food came from, how it was grown, and really in the process of growing that food, it's probably the most intimate connection you can have with your local environment. Because you become very aware of, if it's not raining enough or if it's flooding or, all these things suddenly make you aware of how's that affecting my food. When the New Agrarian Center started to manage the George Jones Farm as a community farm and education center, we had taken over a farm that previously was following basic industrial agriculture. It was corn and soybeans, a lot of heavy equipment, a lot of chemicals sprayed. We found a soil that was pretty much completely denuded of topsoil. So in many ways, the farm became kind of this microcosm for the impacts of industrial agriculture, and then the process of how do you go about restoring the farm ecosystem. And when I say farm ecosystem, I mean the topsoil, the habitat, the biological diversity, kind of all those things. How do we restore that ecological health to the system? So I think a lot of the Jones Farm has been about that process of restoration. A lot of it's been about kind of catalyzing this larger network, because we realized pretty quickly that we couldn't go it alone. I think the first couple of years we were out here, we were really struggling a lot to produce anything because the soil was just so shot. We'd get these spindly little seedlings that were pushing their way through this heavy clay crust. And we joked to ourselves, maybe we should, maybe we should start a pottery business with all this clay soil instead of trying to grow anything in it. But I think we started to learn, how do you go about restoring the ecology of this farm? And we realized that actually was a community question, that we couldn't go it alone. We couldn't restore the soil alone. It required us to create these connections within the local community to rebuild that. So, we had food waste. Instead of putting it in the landfill, we started composting it here on the farm and using that to restore the soil. We started to bring chickens out and would put leaf mulch from the residents of Oberlin from the fall. They'd put their leaves out on the curbside, and we'd take those leaves out here in the farm and put chickens on top of them. Chickens would dig at the leaves and manure everywhere, and over time we started to build up this topsoil that now today we have this thriving farm. And it's taken, a good probably 5 years to get the soil up to that point. where it can be productive again. And the only reason that we've been able to do that is because of connections and support from the city of Oberlin, from Oberlin College, from the residents that are buying the food, or sometimes purchasing it when it's not so good, but knowing that we're just starting and this is a way they can support what we're trying to do. So I think, the local foods movement gives us an opportunity to think about how we can connect some of these basic needs with the resources that we have right here. And what can we do to improve and restore the ecological quality of what's right here so that we can sustain a more vibrant economy, so that we can have a quality environment that will be able to provide for future generations, that will have a quality environment that will be able to provide for wild plants and animals, which are also part of our food system.